we are officially going to be up and running round about Tuesday when the Academy Award nominations come out. But we're recording this beforehand, so we have no idea. We don't know yet.
That's always an interesting day for me. It starts at about 3 a.m. because they have to get the East Coast times, so they.
Are you going down?
Oh yeah, I always
go
there.
Sorry,
So.
I stopped doing that years ago.
They put a nice grub bag on for the folks. They set it all up. It's plenty of food. I got to go over. So I'm going to do a little thing for the BBC. But all you really do is just, record it, and then you do a stand-up, and frankly, you could be anywhere. But they want me to be there. So
the question, well, we know no Kevin Hart, so it's going to be basically just just presenters, no host, which will be interesting. So what are our predictions here for the big? What's going to load up on nominations?
Stars Born.
I say Stars Born is due for at least 9 nominations.
Because it's just so everybody's just liked.
Yeah,
the movie is liked, but everybody associated with the movie. It's like Bradley is liked, Lady Gaga is loved. Everybody's loving Sam Elliott. Everybody's, it's a big old love fest over there.
I think The Favorite will get a bunch.
Writing and
actress, supporting actress, probably 2 of them.
It's almost cheating in that way.
May even get director. I think it'll definitely get picture. I think Roma will get a bunch. Black Klansman will get a bunch. Bohemian Rhapsody. Where's that going to fall?
Only Rami is possible, and at the end of the day, controversy and issues and all that kind of stuff.
So Marvel films, Avengers, Black Panther. Black Panther, I think
that screenplay is amazing.
Will it get any acting nominations? Will Michael B. Jordan get
Michael B. Jordan unequivocally deserves a nomination.
Will he get
To me, Michael B. Jordan is hands down the performance in that category that absolutely captivated me. I still talk about it. I'm just not sure that people will take it seriously because of the kind of movie that performance is in.
See, that's the thing. The Marvel films. I'm wondering. Okay, are there now too many Marvel movies every year? Do they cancel each other out when it comes to art direction and special effects and all that?
Costume, that amazing score.
What's going to win special effects?
There you go.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So
I think oddly, Spider-Verse is
probably an odds-on favorite for animated.
Yeah. Frankly, it's the only thing that can take Incredibles.
Too. Yeah, it'll be those two. It'll be a runoff between those two, and I think it'll probably be Spider-Verse.
I think so too, because people are just first of all, it's different, and it's actually fresh. Incredibles 2 was so much fun, crazy fun, Jack, all of that. But I have seen this movie already.
That's right.
So Spider-Verse, no, haven't seen this movie before.
And there's going to be a few surprises in there. There always are. There's always something that should be nominated that isn't, and vice versa. But it'll be interesting.
I'm hoping Beale Street gets some love.
It'll get score for sure.
Regina King. Everybody's been loving Regina King.
When we gave her an award, I think that gave her a boost. I think that put her on people's radar.
And then and that big Golden Globes speech didn't hurt her at all.
Yeah. But if we had not given her our award, I don't think she would have won a Golden Globe.
It's a little domino kind of thing.
It is. So I think that'll get a few. I still think it's a little too Euro artsy for most people in the Academy.
And most people haven't seen it.
And most people haven't seen it. And I think that's what's also going to hurt things. Foreign language is going to go to Roma just because nobody's seen anything else other than Cold War.
Yeah, which is unfair because Shoplifters is a very good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can name a few.
Shoplifters has made $2 million, and that's one of the top grossing foreign language films now. Now, that's weird to me. You remember when foreign language films, thanks to Miramax, used to make $7, $8, $9, $10, $11 million? That was 25 years ago. Yeah. And now $2 million gets you. That's sad.
Yeah.
I'm happy for the film, but it ought to have made more money than
you would think. Yeah. With films, it's a thing.
It is. So a little bit of very upsetting news for me this week. Mark Ehrman passed away, and that name's not going to mean probably a terrible lot to a lot of our listeners. But Mark Ehrman was head of Paladin Films in New York. A lot of independent films last few years have been released through Paladin. Before that, he was head of Think Film, which some people might remember. And Think Film was a really promising indie for a few years back there. And before that, he ran Lionsgate. I first met Mark Ehrman in 1992 at the Cannes Film Festival when he was a publicist for Dennis Davidson and Associates, and I was connected with him to sort of be my entree into the festival and to show me the ropes. And he was amazingly gracious, a really unbelievable mind. He could meet you 1 second, remember your name and your face, and see you and not see you for a year and a half, and then you show up again, and he would just catalog you right back into the forefront of his brain and know who you were. He was an amazing man. He had extraordinary taste. When he moved from being a publicist into distribution, it was just a natural thing.
Well, yeah, he was 1 foot in the old school.
Totally. And filmmakers loved him because he loved their movies. You know, he was someone that they could get along with. He was passionate about the movies, but he knew the business really well, and he knew how to market things. And you know, some of the stuff he did, there would be no Gods and Monsters.
Yeah,
he picked up. He pulled that out. I mean, that movie and every career associated with it wouldn't be here if not for him. Monsters Ball.
Yeah,
you know, and Halle Berry's Oscar. That was all him. Yeah. You know, everyone associated with that movie in their careers. I mean,
it's kind of funny because those movies, to some extent, have gone away. And the ones that still exist don't get the sort of handling and thus recognition and thus award recognition and thus earn the kind of money that they did 25, 15 years ago. Even 10 years ago.
So Mark Ehrman passed on the actual night of the LAFCA Awards, which was the 12th of January, and it is a huge loss. It was a surprise. I spoke to him in November, and you know, he was sharp as a tack, and we had a great chat for a long time. And apparently, this all happened just kind of late December, early January, and he came down ill, and it was a whirlwind illness, and he has left us. So it is a very, very sad day. It is a huge loss for the film community generally, but especially for independent and foreign films and all the filmmakers and all the careers that owe their success to Mark Ehrman. He was one of a kind and utterly irreplaceable. So, want to at least give our big shout out to Mark Ehrman on this show today. He really left a mark, and in the best way possible. So we're gonna miss him. We're really gonna miss him.
Yeah, man.
So let's get into the stuff, man. I'll blow through some of the music and concert stuff here real quickly. We got some poppy, rocky stuff right off the top. Joan Jett, Bad Reputation from Magnolia. Yeah. Look, I had a crush on Joan Jett for years and years and years, and that's just what you did when you were my age in the 80s.
Hey, me too.
So this is all about Joan Jett and the Runaways and the Blackhearts and her entire career. It's a wonderful, wonderful doc overview. It gets into all the nasty stuff and all the fun stuff and all the good stuff. It really is warts and all. And I still love Joan Jett. She was just the best, and
she still rocks. She still rocks.
And
that producer guy who worked with her and sort of revived her career, after all, he's a very interesting guy. All those sort of like candy pop songs of the 60s, fake pop songs, Sugar, all that kind of stuff. That was him. He produced all of that stuff.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy how much music winds up finding its way only to a handful of producers and songwriters.
Yeah.
Then we've also got New Wave, Dare to Be Different, which is a really, really interesting look at the radio station WLIR, which was called once upon a time the most influential radio station in America. This is from MVD, and the title song here is from Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. And this is a really, really interesting story. In 1982. There was a bunch of kind of renegades, radio renegades, kind of pirate radio renegades, decided to sort of buck all of the usual radio rules and create a station that would be able to kind of operate like an underground station and bring all the music to America that nobody else was playing. And it's really interesting, New York, and this is New York, of course. WLIR is a New York station. We don't hear these stories here. We had obviously KROQ here in LA, and we had our, and then there was pirate radio for a while that pretended to be a pirate radio station coming out of Catalina, which whatever. Yeah. So, but this is the one that kind of started them all, and it's a really, really interesting story and gets into everything and all kinds of people in this. I mean, every major music figure from the era, Joan Jett, Debbie Harry, they're all in here, and Billy Idol, man, has not aged well.
Yeah. Almost nobody has.
I know. CMA Awards Live, Greatest Moments, 1968 to 2015. If you're a big fan, this is 3 DVDs. Just a lot of live performances of country music legends for, over the course of more than a half a century. And it's great. I mean, if you love all these people, if you're not a country music fan, then you're if I say to you, Charlie Pride and George Strait.
Hey, that's country music.
That's right.
A few weeks ago, I watched the CMAs, Country Music Awards.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the Country Music Awards, and the thing that struck me about it is there wasn't any country music.
Yeah, I know.
At all.
I know.
I'm like, this is pop music, and some of it is slightly hip-hop flavored.
Yeah.
But that's country music right there country. In your hand.
Conway Twitty.
Conway Twitty, boy. Tammy Wynette. I know country music.
By the way, it's funny because I remember that day. Anyway, this is a lot of fun. CMA Awards Alive. If you're a country fan, 3 DVDs loaded with performances. Yeah. You'll never get tired of it.
Back when country was country.
Talking about Conway Twitty. So here's the thing. I can't even remember what it was, but it was during that. It was sometime in the early to mid '90s when we had all those kind of lifestyles of the rich and famous type shows that were just profiling everybody. Yeah. And it wasn't. That was roughly around that time where they changed the way that they tabulated top 10 and top 40 sales and all this stuff. It wasn't radio play; it was actual sales, album sales. Mm-hmm. Where now when you bought an album, the barcode went into the wire and it went through the line, and suddenly somewhere there's a computer that tabulates it, and we know exactly, and it's not all kind of guesswork. And overnight, country songs and country albums and country music went just skyrocketed on the charts. They'd always been underreported, their sales. Yeah. And suddenly everybody was aware of the fact that, wow, a lot of people like country music. Never realized that before. And I remember watching this show on TV talking about Conway Twitty and how many albums he'd sold and how rich he was. Now, to me, my wife at the time was big into country music. Me, not so much. Whatever. I figured a few people in Nashville had family in Kentucky and Tennessee, and I knew they listened to it. I didn't know anybody else listened to it. I figured people make a pretty good living, have a nice house somewhere. Dude, Conway Twitty, they showed his house. He lived, I am not kidding. He lived on like a 100-acre estate in Nashville in something like a 25,000 square foot mansion with servants and butlers and the whole thing and horses. It was like Downton Abbey where he lived.
It's crazy.
It was nuts. And there he is, Conway Twitty, with that deep voice and that little mouth crinkles a little bit when he talks. But he's very humble. God's been good to me. God's been good to me.
As he stands there wearing a suit encrusted with diamonds and rhinestones.
Yeah, and I could not believe it. I was like, okay, that I don't even know about the sales. Forget about the sales for a second. That lifestyle tells me that man makes Elvis money.
Oh yeah. That was
Unreal.
Country music, man. That was actual country music.
Unreal.
Dolly Parton too. There's a reason why she bought a place that she could call Dolly Land. That's basically
crazy
because she's rich.
Oh my gosh! So, getting quickly into this, we also got another one here from MVD Music Video Distributors and Film Rise. Mantovani, the King of Strings. Now, if Mantovani doesn't mean anything to you, then you've got to be younger than we are. Annunzio Mantovani was the king of easy listening. He was the orchestra conductor who conducted all of that, like Percy Faith was the other one, but Mantovani did. It's just the stuff they played in elevators all through the 50s and 60s and 70s. In lounges and waiting rooms, and it just puts you to sleep, and it is so lovely to listen to. Jackie Gleason did a lot too. Yeah. But Mantovani was the king. He really, really nailed it. This is a great look at all of his recordings, his TV show. They got performances on here from the 1959 TV show, all on Blu-ray. It is fantastic. It is wonderful. I think this is a great Blu-ray for people from the era. You're going to love it. Also got the Caligula. Now we're getting into the Naxos stuff, the classical stuff. So Caligula is an opera that was, believe it or not, from the 17th century. And this was composed and written by Giovanni Maria Pagliardi. again, I like a lot of opera, not huge into it, so some of the names don't mean anything to me. Pagliardi probably means more to somebody else. This is a wild opera. Directed by Mimo Cuticchio and Alexandra Rubner. It's pretty wild. Obviously, I don't need to tell you what it's about, but the music's good, and it is quite a wild trip. Then we have got a couple here from Bel Air. Bel Air is one of the labels that they have under Naxos, and they've got a production of Benjamin Britten's opera Billy Budd, which is classic and wonderful. And this is the orchestra and chorus of the Teatro Real de Madrid, conducted by Ivor Bolton. Very, very good. I've seen better of Billy Budd. Billy Budd is, it's really, really good. But this is not bad, and it's got a kind of, it's based on the Herman Melville novel, and the music is wonderful. The staging of this is very, very impressive. Again, not the best I've seen, but still very, very solid. Then we also have from Bel Air Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker, directed by, this is the orchestra, chorus, and ballet of the National Parisian Opera. And beautifully, beautifully staged, really impeccable. They do just great stuff. I mean, everything about this is really the art direction. Some of the best I've seen in a very, very long time. This also comes with Iolanta, which is another one-act opera by Tchaikovsky, which is fine. Never seen it before, not blown away, but it's also on here. So, but the Nutcracker is a really, really lovely one. Look, Ernie Hudson on TV behind you.
Ernie
plugging Car Shield.
Yeah, man. Everybody's plugging something now, baby.
My goodness, that's when I realized I was old, when I turned the TV on, and there was a $6 Million Man plugging hearing aids. There was Jonathan Hart plugging reverse mortgages.
And then Magnum PI is doing the same thing.
And then Oscar Goldman was plugging gold, invest in gold. And I thought, really? So all my TV icons are now so old. It's like next thing you know, I'm going to be. Like James West is going to be selling me a colostomy bag.
The Sam Elliott and catheters, some crap like that. Didn't happen yet, though.
Horrible. Belvedere is another new and class art. This is also from Naxos. Mariss Jansons and Richard Strauss Don Quixote, Antonin Dvorak Symphony No. 8. This is the Symphonie Orchester de Bayerischen Rundfunks, which is in Munich, one of the orchestras there. Mariss Jansons, terrific conductor, and Yo-Yo Ma, the centerpiece here. All you got to say is just Yo-Yo Ma doing some music. Forget about who wrote it. It's great. These are all Blu-rays, by the way. And then Mariss Jansons also conducting Beethoven's Mass in C major, along with some other really, really great pieces. Stravinsky Symphony in 3 movements, trumpet concerto from Hummel. But it's really about Beethoven's Mass in C major, which is a wonderful piece of music that is not performed often enough. It's a fabulous mass, and really deserves to be seen and heard. It's really, really, really good. Got 3 from Naxos proper. Benjamin Britten again. Death in Venice. Not as good as Billy Budd, but also a very, very good staging of this from the Teatro Real Chorus and Orchestra. And then Handel's Agrippina, in a really kind of an interesting modern version of this. This is a German staging at the Theater an der Wien. It's a very interesting kind of odd, updated, avant-garde staging of it. The music's great. I'm just not quite sure how I feel about it in this interpretation, but if that's your thing, the really hyper-modernized stuff, that's great. Jules Massenet's Cendrillon, which of course means Cinderella. This is wonderful. This is from the Philharmonisches Orchester Freiburg. And they do a really, really good job. I don't think I've ever covered anything that they did before, but Massenet is a wonderful composer. Cendrillon is a wonderful kind of light opera, I guess, is probably what this would qualify as. It's 4 acts and beautifully put together by the Freiburg Theater. And then kind of wrapping this out, we've got some from Unitel. These are all still Naxos labels. Handel's Xerxes Serse in a really interesting staging. This is from the Frankfurt Opera and Museum Orchestra. We've got Giovanni d'Arco by Verdi, which is beautiful. This is staged by the Parma Opera group. And then we got a couple with Leonard Bernstein, the great Leonard Bernstein, doing Berlioz Symphonie Fantastique at the National French Orchestra, and then Leonard Bernstein doing a whole bunch of teaching and lecturing and all kinds of other fun stuff with the Schleswig-Holstein Music Festival in Germany. These are both from C Major and Unitel, and there's going to be an interesting announcement about Leonard Bernstein in the movies coming up that I probably shouldn't know, and I'm probably not at liberty to disclose.
Really?
But
what? Because we know that. How do we know it if we shouldn't know?
We know it because somebody told me.
Oh, somebody told you.
Somebody told me.
Supposed to tell you.
Well,
you told me.
Who I don't think was supposed to tell me.
Oh,
but,
okay. Yeah.
But
let's not call him out on it. That's okay.
So yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna leave that right there. I'm just gonna drop that little tidbit. Just keep your eyes and ears open for something to do with Leonard Bernstein in the movies coming soon. And then Opus Arte, the fantastic Opus Arte, has 3 here from the Royal Opera House in England and the Royal Ballet. All of them are excellent. The first one is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which I have never seen before, and I did not know that there was an actual Alice in Wonderland ballet. It's lovely. It's absolutely beautiful. Had absolutely no idea. The sets, the costume, everything in this is just absolutely wonderful. So I guess this is a fairly new thing. There's also Puccini's La Bohème, which of course is never bad. You can never do wrong by that. That's always just top notch. Staged by Richard Jones, who does just an amazing job of it. It's just every version of La Bohème is great, and the music is great, and this is just superb. And then a Royal Ballet and Royal Opera House tribute to the choreographer Frederick Ashton. Under the conduction of Emmanuel Plasson, which there's a lot of stuff staged here. Mendelssohn's The Dream, Franck's Symphonic Variations, Liszt's Marguerite and Armand. Again, I'm not hugely familiar with Frederick Ashton, but this is lovely. A lot of great music and dancing. It's really good. And then the last 2 here from Opus Arte. One is a Royal Shakespeare Company performance and production of Shakespeare's Titus Andronicus, which is not a particularly good Shakespearean play. The movie, the Julie Taymor movie.
With Harry Lennox.
That was
outstanding.
And Anthony Hopkins doing, that was hyper stylized and a little disturbing. This is
it had very little to do with that play too.
Yeah, this has a lot to do with the play, but people. Here's the thing: Titus Andronicus is not very good. It was Shakespeare's.
It's very early.
I think it was his first
play. Yeah,
I think it was his first play. So it's Shakespeare just kind of letting it all hang out and trying to get somebody's attention, and it's gory and it's provocative and it's
cutting
lame.
Off with the arms of the end.
Yeah, it's kind of lame. But but it's Shakespeare, so people figure, well, I'll just, because it stinks, I'll take license with it and get weird and freaky. So everybody always kind of hangs their own style on this to an excessive degree. This is no different, but it was there. They did it live from Stratford-on-Avon, and there's a director's commentary on it. And if you like that kind of thing, if you don't mind, then there you go. And then Jonathan Watkins' ballet, based on George Orwell's 1984. Staged by the Northern Ballet, is quite interesting. I'm not sure that 1984 needs a ballet. I don't know that that's the best combination of material. I'm a little bewildered at how somebody would read Orwell and go, "Yeah, I'll bet that would be great to set to dance." People could dance to that. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but look, it is what it is. Give it a look if you're interested. It's different. I'll say that it's different, and I'll leave it with that. There you go. That's our music.
Indeed. I'm going to knock off some gay and lesbian cinema over here. Combination of some Breaking Glass stuff and some stuff from TLA, which I won't do in no particular order. This is a Simon Chung film. Love Simon Chung's work. He's actually done some very nice movies. End of Love, Speechless, a couple of neat little movies. This is I Miss You When I See You. Basically, it's a high school love rekindled sort of film. A couple of young guys who were very, very close and emotionally attached when they were in high school. One of them goes off to Australia. A dozen years goes by. The second one goes to Australia to find his old love and his old friend to see if he can rekindle the thing. Of course, this has complications, but mostly it's just a sort of sweet little 20-something love story with a featurette on it, the making of the film with interviews with the cast and whatnot. A Simon Chung film. Simon is a very good little filmmaker. I like his style quite a lot. And this did very well at the 2018 Outfest Film Festival here in Los Angeles, California. Scaffolding is an Israeli film by Matan Yair, also a very good filmmaker who makes some very interesting little movies. This one, again, is about a young man who was a bit of a troublemaker in high school. Always getting in trouble for one thing or another. He sort of goes away and then has to come back home, and his father wants him to come into the family scaffolding business. And of course, that's a metaphor for a whole bunch of things that are going on in the film. Again, this is just a nice little movie set in Israel, set in Jerusalem, and the sort of dynamic of a young gay Israeli man within the context of all of the things that are going on in the Palestinian territories and having to go into the army and all of that kind of stuff. It's just, it makes for interesting drama in and of itself. And I rather enjoyed it. From Breaking Glass there. My Best Friend. Again, a interesting film in that it's set in Patagonia.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Which was like literally
Argentina.
The end of the planet. Yeah, in Argentina.
That is the southern. By the way, people may not know this because I know people who've lived in Patagonia.
Yeah,
I've certainly.
Baya's
been in Patagonia. Yeah. That is as far south as you can get in the civilized world.
Yeah.
Without on a continent. Yeah. Without getting to Antarctica.
Yeah, without getting if you go any further, you're in Antarctica.
That's it. And they have penguins there in Patagonia.
Yeah,
like
and
running
it's beautiful,
around.
Actually, Patagonia. And blue ice.
You know who settled Patagonia?
Yeah.
The Welsh.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Half the people in Patagonia, gauchos running around speaking Spanish.
Yeah, cowboys, yeah.
They're Welsh.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Did not know that. Anyway, they end up going off to Buenos Aires to sort of hang out and do some things and sort of realize that they are a little bit more enamored of each other than they had thought before. Interesting little movie. Special features, including another short film by Martin Duis, who directed this film, and an interview with the director and some of the cast and scenes and some behind-the-scene music, too. So, My Best Friend from Breaking Glass. And we've got a film set in Beirut. I really love some of the exotic locations of these movies because you just get the chance to see other worlds. Again, this is an interesting film about these young men who live in this sort of impoverished section of this neighborhood in Beirut, and pretty much only have each other, these young men. There's one particular man that comes back into the scene who had been gone away for a while, and there is an accident and someone dies. And this forces all of these young men to sort of reevaluate their lives and how they've been sort of drifting and not doing anything, and not making commitments either to each other or to other people that they might love. It's a lovely film. Again, mostly interesting in that it is set in Beirut, and you just get to sort of see and feel and understand another little part of the world there, which I think is sort of interesting. Now we have from TLA releasing something more of a thriller. So this is like a sort of a single white female sort of like thriller. You have these two guys, they meet. One of them becomes obsessed with the other and eventually starts to sort of like take on his dynamic, his personality. He gets his hair cut the way he wears. He wears his clothes the way he wears his clothes. And eventually you end up in a sort of talented Mr. Ripley sort of situation, which is kind of intense and a little bit of fun.
All right.
So far as that stuff goes. Another one from TLA is Boys by Christophe Carrière. Again, this is about a couple of younger gay men. It begins when one guy is 14 years old. And he meets this guy named Nathan, and they have this little relationship. Eventually, they go apart, and they're apart for many, many years, and they come back together, and he has to reevaluate his entire relationship with Nathan over that period of time from back when he was 14 years old, and he's struggling with it because he's starting to think, man, maybe that was an inappropriate relationship, but at the same time, he's still attracted to that guy right now, and that's in French with English subtitles. Again, these movies are actually pretty interesting in the way that they are sort of thrilling and set in very interesting places.
I love the title of that one.
My Big Gay Italian Wedding. biting a little bit maybe.
Yeah.
What the hell? It's okay.
Yeah.
And it's exactly about that. A big ass gay Italian wedding. Antonio and Paolo. They live in Berlin. They decide to go back to the little village in Italy where Antonio is from, and they have to deal with his parents, his mother, who's very supportive of what's going on, and Paolo's parents, who he hasn't talked to his mother in many, many years. And it's funny. It's just a silly, funny little romp of a movie that's not unlike My Big Gay Greek Wedding or whatever the hell that other movie was called back in the day.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Now we have a doc. We have a doc here that's really quite interesting. It's called Coby, and it's about a young person who goes through gender transformation, and we are with this young person. Her name is Suzanne when we meet her, and she begins gender transformation to become a boy named Coby, and he eventually does, and we watch that entire process. And it's intense. Obviously, there are lots of interviews with her or his now family and friends on how they feel about it and how she's going through it. It's really interesting to listen to Suzanne's voice change from when she is Suzanne over the course of the time taking those hormones and eventually becoming, a rather handsome young man named Coby. And I think it speaks to how, in fact, this is. This isn't just an arbitrary sort of thing. If you watch a movie like this, you begin to understand that some people are just not born exactly right.
Yeah.
In their situation. A Moment in the Reeds, a lovely sort of dramatic film, set in Paris again. This film. Mostly it's set in Finland, though. It begins in Paris and then goes to Finland, and it's just really lovely movie. A Moment in the Reeds is one of the first queer films made in Finland, which is sort of an amazing thing. And
Finland's a funny place, man. Yeah. It is. Their movies are odd, and there's a Finnish film that we're going to be covering not this week, but probably next week or the week after, which I love. But man, is it from Mars?
Yeah,
it's so odd. It's just so peculiar.
I can't wait to see that.
Funny place.
Cola di Mano is the name of this film. Now, this is a gay-ass film right here. This film is real gay.
Well, yeah. By these standards?
By these standards. Anyway, set on Christmas in 1986. It's just about this teenage boy who's just beginning to figure out that he's gay. And he's at this party with his extended family and a bunch of friends, and they're celebrating. And there's a lot of alcohol flowing and passions and secrets flowing around. And everybody figures out, you know what? I think I might be gay. You got to love that. Male Shorts International version 2. This is a series of shorts.
Yeah, we've covered these before.
We've covered these before. Some of them are good. They're generally speaking sort of uneven. So in order to see the good ones, you have to pick up the other ones. This includes a film called Free Fall, Enter, Sorapsio, Ocaso, and Twice. I haven't seen them all, but the Free Fall was actually pretty good. Rather enjoyed that. And Ocasio was a 21-minute film that was very, very good. So you can check those out. And then we have the unrated director's cut of Adonis, a film by Scud from Breaking Glass.
Scud.
Yeah, Scud back at work over here. Yeah. Scud makes gay-ass films, too. Because that's what he's actually doing. This one has a narrative though. It's about a young man who is a performer in the Peking Opera, and by hook or by crook, he sort of comes to find out that there is this sort of world of prostitution that floats around the Peking Opera, and he falls into it, and he's more or less getting involved with women and men, older men, younger women, older women, and he sort of immerses himself into this whole sort of thing. It's actually rather interesting, actually. Special features include an interview with the actors and the director and the making of Adonis. The film is set in Hong Kong and Thailand and Taiwan and Batam. Very interesting stuff.
All right, we're going to hit the new movies now, and we've got quite a lot of them actually, and most of them are kind of junk. But we have some decent stuff. One that we didn't mention at the top of the show. We'll talk about that and its Oscar chances. But first, I'm going to plow through a whole bunch of stuff that's kind of junky. So, I mean, junky but fun. You'll enjoy this stuff. So January is when January movies get released, and theatrically that means that's the garbage thereby kind of saved up, and they're just dumping it because there's nothing else. It's counter programming to the Oscar stuff that's going wide. But on video as well, we get a lot of stuff that there's no room for it any other time of the year, so it all gets hurled out there. And so here we go. It's not all bad. It's a little cheesy, but it's kind of fun. High Voltage. Okay. So High Voltage has, and here's what's weird about this. So High Voltage stars Luke Wilson and David Arquette and a whole bunch of other people, and they're not really the stars of the thing. But what's weird is they put them on the cover and they look alike.
Oh, wow.
Don't they?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Never realized that before, but they've got David Arquette with a goatee and Luke Wilson fully shaved. But when you look at them together, you go, wow, they both kind of look alike. That's sort of scary and weird. And the idea here is that you've got a rock band, and the lead singer, played by Ali Ganino, gets hit by lightning and dies, and then comes back to life. But now she's like got electrical powers that she can zap men with. It's very weird.
I think that happened in an episode of Flash.
It's very it happens on every episode of the Flash. It's she's all meta-humaned out, and it's very weird and kind of silly, but it makes for some great performances when the band like really rocks out. Like, hey, those are some funky effects, man. So that's fine. High Voltage. It's on Blu-ray. It's got a director's commentary that's probably not really worth listening to be honest. Then we got a couple that are basically the same movie here. The Marine 6, Close Quarters, is the 6th Marine movie, and this is basically a WWE promotional thing. All they do is the WWE just uses these things to promote them.
Is that the one where they get the actual Marines to act in it?
No, they're WE wrestlers.
Oh, they're WE wrestlers.
There's wrestlers, yeah. So you got Mike the Miz Mizanin and Shawn Michaels play a couple of Marines who've got to rescue a girl from these international criminals, and the baddie who runs the criminals is Becky Lynch, who's also a WWE wrestler. So it's just like, here are our wrestlers, and watch them try to act. It is what it is. American Renegades is a SEAL drama where there's some Nazi treasure at the bottom of a lake, and a bunch of SEAls have to go get it. But then
actually saw that one.
Everything goes south, right? And then they got 10 hours to make it happen. It is what it is. It's guys with guns.
That's from the Luc Besson School of Filmmaking.
Yeah.
Luke is like an EP on that or something.
Yeah.
If you ever meet Luc Besson, he'll let you make a movie.
Yes, he will. John Travolta just collecting a payday, and Speed Kills, Blu-ray, DVD, and what used to be Ultraviolet is basically now Voodoo on it. This is allegedly based on a true story about a speedboat champion who ran cocaine in his spare time, and suddenly he's caught between mobsters and the government. He's got to make a decision for his family. Always.
Isn't that Ozarks. That's the thing. That's the.
It is kind of It's sort of in the same vein as Ozark.
The Mule.
Shameless movie here, Airstrike. Basically a Chinese movie. This is one of those big chest-thumping Chinese patriotic movies. The Chinese fighting the Japanese during World War II. And there's a whole spy thing going on where they got to run this decoder through to try to get this decoder out of the country, the whole Enigma device kind of a thing, which I don't even know if that's even remotely rooted in truth. That's totally fabricated here. But this is all about teaching Chinese aviators to do a Battle of Britain kind of thing with the Japanese, and they will be trained by Bruce Willis wearing a very ill-fitting Navy uniform that someone pulled out of a chest somewhere, and we don't have time to tailor it.
It's insane that right this second he is in an A-list movie that's
in
released
China
today. Glass.
Oh, Glass, yeah.
Glass released today. Bruce Willis from following up in that.
Yeah.
But he's also in that.
Adrian Brody's also in this, along with
What the hell happened to these people?
You know what?
This is an Academy Award winning.
The Chinese throw money at everyone.
They must. It's just I don't even know what I'm talking.
Matt Damon was in it. She was in a friggin' monster movie.
The wall. Yeah.
And then lastly, we have Final Score.
I'm talking crap like I wouldn't do one of those movies.
I know. Hey, somebody give me enough money to.
I'd write it. I'd direct it. Whatever the hell you want me to do.
Absolutely, I would act in it.
Yeah,
I would. I'd do craft services if you paid me enough. So this is with Dave Bautista. Also, Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah,
Pierce Brosnan.
James Bond.
People are taking paydays.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is Taken. That's all it is. It's Dave Bautista in a version of Taken. In Taken, it's Liam Neeson and his daughter. Here it's Dave Bautista and his niece. Same story, exactly. Yeah. It's called Final Score. Not bad, actually.
Yeah.
It's still Taken. It's the same kind of movie, but I like Dave Bautista. I like him a lot. He's a good guy.
Yeah. Runs around Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. All right, Tim.
I'll start with one of the biggity biggies.
Do it. This is the one this week, 4K.
Yeah. First Man. Damien Chazelle, we're supposed to be talking about this movie for Academy Awards right now. We're supposed to be.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be talking about it.
But we're not. Why aren't we?
Yeah, because it's not very good. It's not great. It's not an Academy Award. I say it's not very good. That's not true. It's a perfectly adequate film.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with it at all. Performances, interestingly sort of interpreted material, not particularly interestingly directed. In any way, and to be honest, this narrative, the story, which is just a story, you can't do anything about it. It is what it is. Look, man, other than the fact that he was the first dude to walk on the moon, his life is not particularly interesting.
See, that's what it is, and I've come to realize this far too late in life about biopics. But the most interesting thing about Neil Armstrong is the thing we already know about him, which is he's the first man on the moon. Yeah, there's a whole thing. He lost his daughter, and he's stricken by grief, and they make that a really powerful through line. But that's not enough. There has to be more to him and his family and the movie and his life than just a climax where he's the first man on the moon and it's shot in IMAX.
Yeah, and it was tough on his family. No kidding. Going to the moon in 1969. Tough on his family. I imagine this. All of that true. And even because a lot of the movie is about is reporting to us about the kind of man that he was. Yeah. Sort of stoic and all this kind of stuff. And this is the kind of man that it takes to go to the moon. Except that standing right next to him is Buzz Aldrin. Yeah. Who's a completely different kind of man. A completely different kind of man. And he also went to the frickin' moon.
And the funny thing is, Buzz, they were always good cop, bad cop, right? That was always the thing, which is a little bit what you get in The Right Stuff, too. Yeah. They needed somebody who could be TV friendly. And I kept thinking of this, and this is part of the problem that I have with First Man. I like the movie. I don't want anybody to get this wrong. I like it. It's gorgeous in 4K. That IMAX moment is great in 4K as well. I mean, they did a hell of a job mastering this thing. It really is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But you're watching the movie and you're very aware of the fact that this is a manufactured product, that somebody had this book by Neil Armstrong's family. They got the family to support it. They thought Damien Chazelle and Ryan Gosling coming right off of La La Land gets it made. The studio throws money at it. And Chazelle is not particularly suited to this material. He didn't write it. So he's coming on as a director for hire. Gosling is doing it because Chazelle is doing it and probably isn't suited necessarily to the part. They both do really good work, but at the end of the day, I'm watching it and I'm thinking, this is trying to position itself alongside Apollo 13 and The Right Stuff. And I'm very aware of the fact that that's what it's trying to do.
Yeah, and frankly, it's trying to do it in a day and age when even at its best, this is a Netflix movie.
It's kind of true.
At its best, this is a Netflix movie. You don't. They all look a lot of interesting stuff. The stuff on the moon, because for one thing, he shoots it very claustrophobically. Yeah, big close-ups and shaky. So I mean, I don't need a big old close-up of a dial reading 45 degrees pressure. Yeah, I know. Why do I need that? So anyway, nevertheless, packed full of all kinds of stuff on this. 4K Ultra HD, just more stuff that you can think of, including deleted scenes and some recreation of the moon landing, loaded with all kinds of stuff. But we are not talking about it. No. And I imagine some of the special effects and all of that will pop up. But in the main categories, we're not talking about this.
And I was going to say too, that good cop bad cop thing that they're playing there was actually better done in The Right Stuff with Ed Harris playing John Glenn and Scott Glenn playing Alan Shepard. That was the good cop bad cop thing. And you also had Fred Ward playing a little bit of a bad cop too. He's a little bit of a edgy guy playing Gus Grissom.
He plays Gus,
and Gus Grissom's part of this too, isn't he? I think Gus is in this too. So I mean, I like it, but gosh, I wanted it to be better. And I think that's the thing. Everybody wanted it to be better, and it should have been better. Yeah. Should have been better. Anyway, Johnny English strikes again. Rowan Atkinson as Johnny English, the goofy British spy, the British MI6 answer to Maxwell Smart. Look, the first Johnny English film was fine. The second one was really bad, and I love Rowan Atkinson. I live for Rowan Atkinson and Blackadder and Mr. Bean. I could just watch that forever. This might be the best of the series, and I wasn't expecting anything out of this. Now, it's silly. It's a ridiculous plot. It basically is an excuse to get Rowan Atkinson into a whole bunch of slapsticky situations where he can do a Mr. Bean shtick, where he can just go, make those noises and do something really ridiculous and incompetent and goofy, and then something lights on fire, and then something rolls across the floor and something else lights on fire. That's his thing. That's his shtick. So if you're okay with that, you'll have fun with it. Now, what I really like about it, though, is what the plot does, which is the plot is that all the identities of spies, British spies, have been exposed because of a social media leak. So we have to get the only one who was not entered into social media, who's long retired, right? Who isn't on the grid, and that's of course Johnny English. And he doesn't like he throws the cell phone out the window. We don't need digital age stuff. And it's true. He's purely analog.
Yeah.
And he's fighting basically a combination of Apple and Google and Facebook. That's what he's fighting. He's fighting this social media digital behemoth that's going to take over the world and take over England and hold the whole world hostage because they can run the world better. It really, really pokes it at Google. I mean, in a horrible way.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I was glad that they made that a target, and I had fun with it. It's dumb. It's not perfect. But you know what? It's the best that Johnny English has been.
Takes down a Jeffrey Zuckerbergian type character quite nicely.
And it's got extras, too. It's got mostly featurette stuff, and then David Kerr, the director, does a commentary. It's fun.
And I have Best Friends, Fiends, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Of course, Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero created the film The Room, which inspired the film The Disaster Artist, which, got James Franco and his brother, and Tommy Wiseau again.
So weird that this happened. This is
a weird little loop there.
But it's like two films done back to back, or one film that they split into two because they didn't want to edit it down.
Yeah.
What it feels
they
like.
Make these two movies. And basically, it's a film in which they are playing these characters.
Yeah.
Wiseau is playing this mortician, and they come up with this completely wacky caper that has to do with stealing gold out of the mouths of dead people and all kinds of wacky stuff. You know what? What's most interesting about this film is that Tommy Wiseau is no better an actor now than he was in 2003 when he was in The Room. He's still terrible. Greg, he's still making his bones off hanging around with Tommy. And I guess I can't be mad at them. They squoze 2 movies out of it. Nevertheless, both of them have some special features, deleted scenes, and commentary with the producer and Tommy and Greg on both of it. So if you're into that whole little world there, I suppose these are must see. I was good. I was good after The Disaster Artist. I let the whole damn thing go after that. Yes, sir.
All right. Let me hit a couple here real quickly. Little Italy. So Don Petrie of the Petrie family. It's a big Petrie dish of directors in that family.
Go way back.
He used to do things like Miss Congeniality that were big sort of studio romantic comedy hits, and now he does things like Little Italy, which goes straight to DVD and Blu-ray. This is kind of a I don't want to say anything really terrible about it. It's got Emma Roberts and Hayden Christensen. Where did they go? Who were once a thing for a moment, and now they make the movies like this. So their childhood, they grew up together, they're childhood friends, and now they've got a thing going as adults, but their parents have feuding pizzerias.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Comedy writes itself.
Romeo and Juliet and anything.
I know it's silly. But Danny Aiello's in it, and he's aged, man. He's really aged. But
Danny Aiello was pretty damn old 30 years ago when he was in Do the Right Thing.
And you know what, Danny Aiello, you only hear his voice in Is it Godfather 2 or Godfather 1? Which is it?
I think it's the first one.
It's the first one, where the guy gets garroted and you hear his voice off screen and he goes like, "This is from Michael Corleone." And he takes him out with it. Anyway, that was his kind of his sort of breakthrough that moment. He got to be off-screen guy in The Godfather.
He was a stunt guy for years, Danny Aiello.
He drove a truck until he was in his 40s.
Yeah. Just goes to show you can pull that ripcord anytime you want.
Sure can. And then The Car, Road to Revenge. This is an unrated sequel to the movie that came out when I was a kid. Boy, that took a long time. The Car, which is about this, this souped-up Lincoln Continental that's the car from hell. It's like demonic, and at the end, you see the face of the devil in the flames after it goes over the edge. It's a ridiculous movie. The Car is absolutely stupid, but I have friends who love it. Anyway, so they went and they resurrected The Car for this straight-to-DVD sequel, 42 years later, and don't really understand it. The only thing that connects it is that Ronnie Cox is back. Ronnie Cox played the mechanic in the first one, and now he's back in this one, and it's absolutely silly. But anyway, so the car is basically on a path of vengeance. It's a murderous. I forget it. It's silly. But anyway, if you like the first one, the car Road to Revenge, it's out.
Love me some Ronnie Cox. Vision Quest. He's even in. He's in. I think he's in all of those Beverly Hills Cops movies. At least 2 of them, anyway.
Yeah.
We have Who We Are Now. A film with a great cast, I must say. If nothing else, Juliana Nicholson, Leah Thompson, Zachary Quinto, Jimmy Smits, Emma Roberts, Jason Biggs, Jess Wexler, all in this little movie. Basically about a young woman who, after 10 years in prison, is released and wants to go and reclaim her child who has been adopted, or at least custody has been given to her sister. Jimmy Smits plays her defense attorney, who has a little team of young lawyers, and one of the young lawyers, played by Emma Roberts, decides to take up with Juliana Nicholson's character and help her get her son back. To interesting consequences. A very powerful, moving little drama that would have been much more of a movie, much more of a thing. 10 or 15 years ago with a cast like this. But it's a neat little movie nonetheless. No special features to speak of on Who We Are Now, which is a bit of a bummer. Ansel Elgort, who sort of came on the scene a couple of years ago, and of course had Baby Driver since then, and a few of those. I think he's in the Divergent series. He might have been in 2 of those series. So in this movie, Jonathan, interesting sort of dynamic. He's just one guy that has these 2 personalities inside of him, ostensibly brothers inside one body. One of them is sort of a fighting, not crazed, but aggressive, badass kind of guy. And the other one's more of a thinking, delicate and intuitive sort of guy. They both fall in love with the same girl. The 2 brothers inside the one man. Interesting sort of premise there. Doesn't really hold up all that well as a movie all the way through, but I do like the premise quite a lot. Not a whole lot on this DVD in terms of special features. I like what they call it, a hybrid of Fight Club and Charlie Kaufman.
Oh, wow, that's a brain tweeze.
That's interesting. Yeah.
That's a brain tweezer.
Yeah.
So we've also got a little indie here, Till Death Do Us Part, which is the kind of movie that used to be Indecent Proposal, and there were a lot of Fatal Attraction, all of those kind of Adrian Lyne-y things. This has sort of an Adrian Lyne vibe to it. Basically, Stephen Bishop and Annie Alonza. How do you pronounce her name? You know that? Alonza? Annie Alonza. So Stephen Bishop, Annie Alonza, they get married, and she thinks he's the greatest guy, and then he turns into a monster. Like as soon as they're married, she fakes her death, but can't get away from him. And Taye Diggs shows up because he's Taye Diggs, and he's got to be there as like the dude.
Yeah,
but
I like that movie the first time they made it with Julia Roberts sleeping with the enemy.
Yeah, it's one of those.
And then they made it again with Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah,
they make that movie about every 8 or 9 years.
They do. And Not Without My Daughter is another one. Sally Field and Alfred Molina as her crazed Persian husband. They go back to Iran after the revolution, and he's all in with the mullahs. And anyway, it's that movie done all over again. Then we also have MDMA, which is kind of lame, but I'm sort of forgiving of it because I think Annie Q does a really good job in it. Francesca Eastwood is also in it. So MDMA is about a girl played by Annie Q who comes from a very, very, she's being raised by her dad, very, very, he's an Asian immigrant, very strict kind of Asian immigrant upbringing, but wants to be a wild and crazy American girl, goes to college, and she's in the lab. She realizes that she can make ecstasy during her chemistry class. So she starts basically dealing ecstasy, which is known as MDMA, and it winds up, causing all kinds of havoc in her life, and it becomes a cautionary tale. Basically, it's an arty exploitation film is what it is. It's not great. Angie Wong wrote and directed the film. Does an okay job. It's a little precious. It's a little full of itself. But I really like the lead performance by Annie Q, and I look forward to seeing her in something else.
Yeah. James Franco had a little run there when he was just doing everything before he ran into some problems with some of the other things he was doing, including directing just about everything he could think of. Now, occasionally he would pull something out that I thought was interesting simply because of the source material. So this is The Sound and the Fury. Faulkner, of course, and I got to tell you that this is 2014. He made this movie. I remember talking about it on the radio. It's one of those stories about this family in the deep South, and at the turn of the last century, and the family is sort of unraveling, and the son comes home, and then dark secrets come out about all kinds of things. It's Faulkner, you know? And the thing that impressed me is that he's adapting Faulkner. Nobody even reads Faulkner anymore. You know,
that's true. I don't know. Everyone knows Faulkner, but no one reads him.
Nobody reads. So yeah, that impressed me. The film is okay. Best thing in the film is an actor named Scott Hayes, who's really playing the lead. Frankel shows up in the film, but he doesn't play the lead in the film. And Seth Rogen shows up, and that Danny McBride, Tim Blake Nelson, the whole little team of guys who do that business there. And it's a perfectly decent, well-made sort of adaptation of Faulkner. In no particular way special, but that it is an adaptation of Faulkner.
Got 4 genre titles here. They're all probably worth a look. They're all relatively well done. The book Break My Heart 1,000 Times, which I've never heard of, I'm going to guess that it's some kind of a young adult thing, has been adapted into I Still See You, which obviously is meant to evoke the Sixth Sense a little bit. And Bella Thorne stars. This takes place, it's kind of a post-apocalyptic thing where after the apocalypse, the Earth is now haunted by a lot of ghosts. Kind of like Omega Man meets Poltergeist, I guess is maybe the best way to do it. Anyway, and Bella Thorne is quite good. I'd like to see her do a better script, but she's kind of trapped between between worlds, the ghost world and the world of the living, and it's it's kind of a young adult thrillery thing. It's all right. It's not great, not terrible. Beyond the Sky with Ryan Carnes, Jordan Hinson, Peter Stormare, and Dee Wallace. The only people there you've ever heard of are Dee Wallace and Peter Stormare.
Yeah.
And Peter Stormare just plays weird people with accents now.
Yeah,
and Dee
man,
Wallace,
he had a little moment there, though, when he was,
Well, after Fargo.
Yeah.
The wood chipper moment. But he just plays weird guys with accents now. That's all he does. Anyway, this is, Dee Wallace, of course, from E.T. That was her big moment, and she's been riding on it for the last 35, 40 years, whatever it's been. And this is an alien abduction movie, and that's pretty much all it is. And it's relatively fine for it, the idea being that it's like every 7 years they come back to do their little abduction dance, and it is what it is. And then Await Further Instructions by Johnny Kevorkian. Not to make fun of your name, but if I were a director, I'm not sure I'd keep that name. There's a guy who kind of ruined the Kevorkian name for other people. But maybe if you're making genre movies, it's not so bad. Maybe it's like Marilyn Manson. Maybe it plays to your advantage. Like people remember it.
They hear it, and they just, let's go see what that guy's doing.
Yeah. Well, anyway. So this is one of those Christmas genre movies where this family wakes up and there's disgusting goo all around their house on Christmas Day. And what's going on? What is this? And it winds up being like a sort of a Cloverfield kind of a scenario where all of the media gives them no information. It just says, await further instructions. And you're like, what's going on? What's going on? So it goes in a very weird kind of a David Cronenberg direction. It's not a David Cronenberg film. It's not as good as a David Cronenberg film, but it certainly aspires to go there, and it's got some interesting stuff going on. I guess I'm gonna guardedly recommend it. Await further instructions. It's for that kind of it's more original than most, so I'll say that.
The Oath was an interesting little film when it came out, starring Ike Barinholtz and Tiffany Haddish. And it's a dark comedy that kind of goes sideways, but more or less saves itself at the end. The notion is this: there's a sort of right wing government that's in power. Wow, and they suggest that folks might want to take an oath.
Oh dear.
Of allegiance to the United States. Now, this is the interesting thing about the film. This is a suggestion that this sort of right-wing government makes. It's not an edict. It's not a thing where everybody has to take the oath. It's just one of these things where, you probably want to take the oath. You should take the oath. And Ike Barinholtz, who's married to Tiffany Haddish, Ike is, is white and Tiffany is black, and Ike is like this white liberal dude who's just not going to take this oath. He's not going to do it. And for a while there, all of his friends are right with me. You're not going to take this. We're not going to. And one by one, they fall off and they take it. They take the oath. They take the oath. And he's just going bananas. And his family comes to the Thanksgiving. And his father's taking the oath, and his brother's taking the oath, and it's really sort of interesting how this drives him crazy, and what it pushes him to do, and who it pushes him to become. The liberal guy becomes the flaming asshole. Yeah, and I think that was what was sort of interesting about the movie. Is it would have been easy to make the liberal guy the hero. And make all the sort of, people willing to take the oath, the butt of the joke. It goes a little bit, John Cho's in the movie, it goes a little bit off the rails at the end, gets really, really darkly violent, but it is funny occasionally. Ike Barinholtz is directing. Behind the scenes stuff includes deleted scenes and a couple of featurettes and this, that, and the other thing. Not a bad little directing debut for Ike Barinholtz. Cleverly done. Val Kilmer is the super. Val Kilmer, man.
Not to be confused with the Joe Pesci movie, The Super.
No, don't do that. All right. So anyway, in this particular one, he's playing an ex-cop, and he lives in this building, and people are going missing inside this building, big old scary building, one of those. And he's an ex-cop. Sure. So he's going, I can figure out who's killing folks in this building. Anyway, it's one of those movies, not particularly good, but Val Kilmer's roaming around in it. So what you going to do? Now this is an interesting movie to me, a happening of monumental proportions. This is this big old cast of a movie. Common is in this movie. Bradley Whitford's
Common's in everything, dude.
Common's in everything.
Every
nowadays.
Commercial, every TV show. His agent is
his
working
voice
overtime.
Is the voice of IBM right now. Yeah. Good people for him. Keanu Reeves shows up in this movie. Allison Janney, Jennifer Garner. Now, why is that? Why are all of these people in this movie that none of you have ever heard of? This is why. This movie, which is a comedy about a career day at a high school, where the various different folks, teachers and principals and blah, 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 at the high school find a dead body. They find the body of the caretaker at the high school, and they have to sort of hide the fact that there's this dead guy at the high school and to figure out who did it and all that kind of stuff while all the kids in career day is going on around them. A big, crazy, stupid, funny movie. Yet you'd never heard of it. And this is why. Because it's really not all that good. And despite the fact that it has all of these sort of names and quasi-names in it, that didn't save it. Mm-hmm. That will not save you folks if the movie isn't very good. You can get Common and all of these people and Allison Janney, and they're all funny people roaming around doing what they do, but it doesn't make any difference. The movie isn't good. The movie's directed by, though, the wonderful Judy Greer. Believe me, I promise you know Judy Greer. Go look her up. Gorgeous redhead with big, wonderful eyes. Been acting in movies for, I don't know, ever since we got here. Bridget used to go out and on auditions with Judy Greer all the time. And she's just wonderful. Judy Greer is the woman that you watched movies all through the early 90s, opposite Julia Roberts and opposite Cameron Diaz and opposite. She always played their girlfriend or maybe their roommate or maybe, something. And you always thought to yourself, man, I wish that chick was the star of this movie. She is fantastic. It's Judy Greer. She's been that person for her entire career. Anyway, she wrangled herself a debut directing gig. The movie's okay, but it's not great. And most importantly, remember this: a bunch of name actors will not save you if the movie is not that good.
And on DVD, not Blu-ray, which we thought we might talk about at Oscar time, but apparently not, is a movie that also has Common in it. How does he find the time? It's Here and Now with Sarah Jessica Parker and Simon Baker. And then a bunch of other people, including Renee Zellweger, Jacqueline Bisset, and Common. And another movie with a lot of people in it who, why are they in this movie? It's, it just doesn't click, man. It stars Sarah Jessica Parker. This is what I call this is kind of like It's a Wonderful Life / Christmas Carol done on a peanut. So you can't afford to have somebody kind of reevaluate their life courtesy of an angel or ghosts or something supernatural or in a really interesting way. So you have a movie about somebody who is in a particular situation where they are perhaps a little full of themselves. She's a successful singer, and then something happens. Boom. And oh my, and now I have to look back and reevaluate my choices and make left turn or a right turn going forward, et cetera, et cetera. Simon Baker plays the ex-husband, and Common plays her manager, and Jacqueline Bisset plays her mom, and it's like kind of an existential journey in a not very interesting way. But Sarah Jessica Parker is endearing, but I don't buy her as a singer.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
Time freak. I like Asa Butterfield. I like Sophie Turner.
Yeah.
A couple of young actors. Asa, from Ender's Game and all that kind of stuff. Time Freak is a movie that's basically about a fella. He's a brilliant engineer and physicist. He has this gorgeous girlfriend. She dumps his ass. What does he do? He decides to build a time machine, go back, do everything again, try to get it right, and make sure that she does not dump his ass again. Of course, when you build a time machine and you go back to fix something that you screwed up the first time, that's not going to work. That never works. But they tried in this movie anyway. I do like the tagline: "Live, love, regret, repeat." That's good. That's clever tagline. That's clever tagline.
Yeah.
Way to go, kids.
That's great.
But the movie now, Elizabeth Harvest. I want a film by Sebastian Gutierrez with Ciarán Hinds and Carla Gugino and Matthew Beard, Nabby Lee, and basically it's about this woman who marries this guy, and he's rich and a powerful scientist, and he takes her off to this really beautiful modernist estate where Carla is like the maid, and it's all kind of creepy, and to be honest, it's really just Rebecca. Yeah. This is Rebecca, sort of gothic and all that kind of stuff. Rebecca, there's a room that she can't go into, and it's just Rebecca. and I keep thinking to myself, do they know this is Rebecca? Because I don't think that they do.
No, in this day and age, everything is so many levels removed from those original movies that they are riffing on something that was riffing on something that riffed on Rebecca.
Riffed on Rebecca. Yeah. It's really sort of funny.
Yeah.
So there's that.
All right. Let's do some TV. And I'll go through a couple things here, and Tim will hit up a couple, and then we'll wrap the show out. The first is the boxed set from BBC of Robin Hood, the complete series, which is, a perfectly adequate, serviceable Robin Hood telling. If you haven't seen it, it's fine. It's not really the Robin Hood, it's just another version of Robin Hood. It's better than the recent movie by far. The last few Robin Hood movies have been a disaster. The Russell Crowe thing, where he's just way too old to be playing Robin. I mean, look, not to get off the subject, but when Russell Crowe was playing Robin Hood, who was not yet Robin Hood, he was as old as when Sean Connery played the too old Robin Hood in Robin and Marian. It was a problem.
But he was playing a Robin Hood who was supposed to be like 20.
Yeah.
And play the old Robin Hood if you want, but don't play 20-year-old Robin Hood, Russell. That's insane.
And that movie was a complete bastardization of the original script, which was all supposed to be from the point of view of the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah.
Which would have been interesting.
But when Russell should have played the sheriff.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
Anyway, Jonas Armstrong here is Robin Hood, and it's updated, and it focuses a bit on the Crusades, and it gets into some areas that Robin Hood movies typically don't dwell on too much, but ultimately it's not brilliant. It's adequate. We also have on Blu-ray, amazing, the Blu-ray debut of The Shield, the complete series. I'm going to tell you right now, when this debuted on FX, I didn't think it was a very interestingly shot show. FX broadcast it looking very grimy, very grungy. It had a certain kind of digital camera look to it, desaturated digital camera look that I didn't particularly like. I got what they were going for. I got that they wanted to have a real urgent new. You know what? On Blu-ray, I get how they shot it originally. It was FX's broadcast quality that didn't do it for me originally. This is the Shield with a very different tone, a very different look than what you may have gotten originally on FX. So I'm going to really highly recommend this. This is a sharp show. It's a gritty show. It pushed the envelope for original cable shows at the time, went into directions that nobody had gone in. Cable shows were kind of following the lead of the networks at the time, didn't realize that being basic cable meant you had a lot more latitude under the FCC. And The Shield pushed that envelope. It really went into some interesting areas, and in many respects paved the way for the premium cable model of today. Really a great original show. Michael Chiklis just kills it is kind of one of the first great anti-heroes on television. This was when when a character struggling against his dark side was interesting, long before Dexter or any of the others that.
And we're interested in that he was coming off of several years as the cuddly commish.
That's right.
To play that role, he
totally opposite.
He shaved his head and beefed up because remember he
totally
pumped up.
Opposite.
And then just went the other way with that. So you gotta love that.
The Shield on Blu-ray is to be highly, highly recommended, and that comes from Mill Creek. And I just can't say enough about it. Tons of extra features here, more than 10 hours of featurettes, and there are commentaries on certain episodes. And there's even footage of a cast reunion with the creator, Sean Ryan, in 2018. It's absolutely terrific. Really good.
Good stuff, good stuff. Castle Rock. Castle Rock, of course, is the fictional town which lies behind most of Stephen King's fictional works, many of which are literally set in the town. This is set in the town of Castle Rock. It's a new work of fiction by King in association with J.J. Abrams. It was a very stark and engaging sort of series that I watched. And if you're a fan of King's work, I bought my wife every single hardback of Stephen King's books from probably the late 70s.
I remember that.
You're still on it. So every single one of them, when they would come out, I would buy. Tell you want to get a chick's heart? Buy her a book by an author she really likes, and that chick will dig you forever. If you do know that canon, this brushes up against several works within that long historical canon.
Yeah.
And so when you're watching it and you know that reference or that moment or that thing, that visual moment in the film is related to the Dark Tower or to It or The Shining or something like that, it's extremely satisfying. Less so, I think, for people who are not familiar with the canon of Stephen King. So what do you got to do? You got to read all that Stephen King before you can enjoy this? No, you can enjoy this anyway.
Sure.
But if you know the King, you're going to enjoy this a lot more. The Purge season 1, which is more or less The Purge. It's just in the context of the television series. One night a year, people could go out and wreak havoc and murder. What they do is with this is just try to crank it up to 11.
Yeah,
that's all they're doing. Cranking it up to 11. And I'm not sure that I need to see this at 11. Stephen Colbert executive produces our cartoon President. This is season 1. And I would have thought I'm the sort of right person to enjoy something like this. But occasionally funny. But the thing of it is, the actual thing is way funnier. Yeah, just turn on CNN. It's way funnier.
There is a problem we have right now, which is that the 24 24-hour news cycle is more dramatic and unpredictable and entertaining than actual movies and television, and that competition is hurting a lot of stuff.
Every night there's way more entertainment already on the news.
And
you're gonna get over.
And the news channels all exploit it. Every one of them, they play it up. Every single one. All right, that's it, folks. Oscar nominations will be coming out. Literally, they will have already come out by the time most of you are listening to this. I'm going to see if we can post this a little bit beforehand, get a lead on the week. But otherwise, the next show, we will be talking about Oscar nominations and maybe making a little forecast and talking about surprises and snubs. We'll see you then.
Yeah.